White tree, Sam thought. Please let this be White tree. He remembered White tree. White tree was on the maps he had drawn on their way north. If this village was White tree, he knew where they were. Please, it has to be. He wanted that so badly that he forgot his feet for a little bit. He forgot the ache in his calves and his lower back and the stiff frozen fingers he could scarcely feel. He even forgot about Lord Mormont and Cluster and the Whites and the others. White tree, Sam prayed, to any god that might be listening. All wildling villages looked much alike, though. A huge weirwood grew in the center of this one, but a white tree did not mean white tree necessarily. Hadn't the weirwood at White Tree been bigger than this one? Maybe he was remembering it wrong. The face carved into the bone pale trunk was long and sad. Red tears of dried sap leaked from his eyes. Was that how it looked when we came north? Sam couldn't recall. Around the tree stood a handful of one room hovels with sawed roofs, a long hall built of logs and grown over with moss, a stone well, a sheepfold, but no sheep, nor any people. The wildlings had gone to join Mance Raider in the First Fangs, taking all they owned except their houses. Sam was thankful for that. Night was coming on, and it could be good to sleep beneath a roof for once. He was so tired, it seemed as though he had been walking half his life. His boots were falling to pieces, and all the blisters on his feet had burst and turned to callus. But now he had new blisters under the callus, and his toes were getting frostbitten. But it was either walk or die, Sam knew. Gilly was still weak from childbirth and carrying the babe besides. She needed the horse more than he did. The second horse had died on them 3 days out from Custer's Keep. It was a wonder she lasted that long, poor half-starved thing. Sam's weight had probably done for her. They might have tried riding double, but he was afraid the same thing would happen again. It's better that I walk. Sam left Gilly in the long hall to make a fire while he poked his head into the hovels. She was better at making fires. He could never seem to get the kindling to catch, and the last time he tried to strike a spark of flint and steel, he managed to cut himself on his knife. Gilly bound up the gash for him, but his hand was stiff and sore, even clumsier than it had been before. He knew he should wash the wound and change the binding, but he was afraid to look at it. Besides, it was so cold that he hated taking off his gloves. Sam did not know what he hoped to find in the empty houses. Maybe the wildling had left some food behind. He had to take a look. John had searched the huts at White Tree. On their way north, inside one house, Sam heard a rustling of rats from a dark corner, but otherwise there was nothing in any of them but old straw, old smells, and some ashes beneath the smoke hole. He turned back to the weirwood and studied the carved face a moment. It is not the face we saw, he admitted to himself. The tree is not half as big as the one at White Tree. The red eyes wept blood, and he didn't remember that either. Clumsily sank to his knees. Old gods, hear my prayer. The seven were my father's gods, but I said my words to you when I joined the watch. Help us now. I fear we might be lost. We're hungry too, and so cold. I don't know what gods I believe in now. But please, if you are there, help us. Gilly has a little son. That was all he could think to say. The dusk was deepening, the leaves of the weirwood rustling softly, waving like 1,000 blood-red hands. Whether John's God had heard him or not, he could not say. By the time he returned to the long hall, Gilly had the fire going. She sat close to it with her furs opened, the babe at her breast. He's as hungry as we are, Sam thought. The old women had smuggled out food for them from Craster's, but they had eaten most of it by now. Sam had been a hopeless hunter, even at Hornhill, where game was plentiful and he had hounds and huntsmen to help him. Here in this endless empty forest, the chances of him catching anything were remote. His efforts at fishing the lakes and half frozen streams had been dismal failures as well. How much longer, Sam? Gilly asked. Is it far still? Not so far as it was. Sam shrugged out his back, eased himself awkwardly to the floor, and tried to cross his legs. His back ached so abominably from the walking that he would have liked to lean up against one of the carved wooden pillars that supported the roof, but the fire was in the center of the hall beneath the smoke hole, and he craved warmth even more than comfort. Another few days should see us there. Sam had his maps, but if this wasn't White Tree, then they weren't going to be much use. We went too far east to get around that lake, he fretted, or maybe too far west when I tried to double back. He was coming to hate lakes and rivers. Up here, there was never a ferry or bridge, which meant walking all the way around the lakes and searching for places to ford the rivers. It was easier to follow a game trail than to struggle through the bush, easier to circle a ridge instead of climbing it. If Bannon or Devon were with us, we would be at Castle Black by now, warming our feet in the common room. Bannon was dead, and Devon gone with Gren, and Dolores, Ed, and the others. The wall is 300 miles long and even 700 feet high, Sam reminded himself. If they kept going south, they had to find it, sooner or later, and he was certain that they had been going south. By day he took directions from the sun, and on the clear nights they could follow the ice dragon's tail, though they hadn't travelled much by night since the second horse had died. Even when the moon was full, it was too dark beneath the trees, and it would have been so easy for Sam or the last Garen to break a leg. We have to be well south by now. We have to be. What he wasn't so certain of was how far east or west they might have strayed. They would reach the wall, yes, in a day or a fortnight. It couldn't be farther than that, surely. Surely. But where? It was the gate at Castle Black they needed to find, the only way through the wall for 100 leagues. Is the wall as big as Craster used to say? Gilly asked. Bigger, Sam tried to sound cheerful. So big you can't even see the castles behind it. But they are there, you'll see. The wall is all ice, but the castles are stone and wood. There are tall towers and deep walls, and a huge long hall with a great fire burning in the hearth day and night. It's so hot in there, Gilly, you'll hardly believe it. Could I stand by the fire, me and the boy? Not for a long time, just till we are good and warm. You can stand by the fire as long as you like. You'll have food and drink too. Hot mulled wine and a pound of venison, stewed with onions and hops bread right out of the oven, so hot it will burn your fingers. Sam peeled a glove off to wriggle his own fingers near the flames and soon regretted it. They had been numb with cold, but as feeling returned, they hurt so much he almost cried. Sometimes one of the brothers will sing, he said, to take his mind off the pain. Darian sang best, but they sent him to Eastwatch. There is a still Halder, though, and Toad. His real name is Dodder, but he looks like a toad, so we call him that. He likes to sing, but he has an awful voice. Do you sing? Gilly rearranged her furs, and she moved the babe from one breast to the other. Sam blushed. I I know some songs. When I was little, I liked to sing. I danced too, but my Lord Father never liked me to. He said if I wanted to prance around, I should do it in the yard with a sword in my hand. Could you sing some southern song for the babe? If you like, Sam thought for a moment. There's a song our Septon used to song me and my sisters when we were little and it was time for us to go to sleep. The Song of the Seven, it's called. He cleared his throat and softly sang.